I guess that's the indicator we need to start. It got really quiet, and everybody started looking up here. So first of all, I'll just go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 3:31, so we're almost starting on time, close enough. So welcome everybody that's here in person and those that joined online. Thank you very much. Hope everybody's had a chance to take a look at the agenda. It's going to be heavily RMOC related, so we're going to beat that drum a little bit harder and continue to do that. Hopefully from a couple different perspectives, so that we can, I know I have still kind of evolving in what I think about how to get this done and what's going to be the best solution. And I think in talking to Liz Benjamin, I think the ACS COT is still evolving and figuring out how best to get this done. So that'll be on the agenda. Let me start. The packet that was sent out as well to everybody also had minutes from last meeting. If you hadn't had a chance to take a look at those, take a second and I'll entertain a motion for approval or any questions regarding those. Anybody online?
Yeah, I'll make the motion that Ashley or.
Awesome.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any question or discussion? Omissions, deletions, additions? Any objection to approval of the minutes? All right, we'll consider those approved, and thank you guys for taking those and making those records so we can always refer back to them. It's very helpful. We'll start out by, hopefully everybody got the QR code. If you didn't, we can put it back up later to register your attendance. Liz will be acutely interested in making sure that list is complete. You like that? You like that term? Yeah. So don't forget to log your attendance and get credit for being here, even online. And we'll jump right down the agenda with our standing item of GCTE update. Yes, we do have a few online. So if you do want to speak, I just ask. It sounds a little extra with a small group like this, but please come to the microphone so everybody online can hear.
Hi guys, I'm Becky Gaskins. I'm the Vice Chair of GCT, and this is my first meeting, so give me feedback if I do it wrong, please. Oh, closer to the mic. See, feedback already. Thank you. So from our GCTE meeting, our PI toolkit that has been worked on by our PI subcommittee, they are continuing to work on that. They met again last week and are continuing to assist with building out this toolkit to help with PI initiatives throughout the state. Our PEDS subcommittee has completed the PEDS transfer toolkit that is expected to be released very shortly in the next couple of days, so that should be coming to everybody. And they are revamping the pediatric imaging toolkit. They're updating that to make that a trifold, and that should be coming back to us in Q2 of this year. And they are continuing to collect data and provide EMS education on the EMS safe transport. Our registry subcommittee, Dr. Ayang Chi, presented to the registry subcommittee explaining what the Arbor-Metrics data is used for from a GQIP standpoint and how that is used throughout the state to assist with oversight and QI, which was very well received. And they are still working on education throughout any registry-specific questions that come up from the different centers. Our education subcommittee is finalizing the logistics for our topic and optimal courses, and they are continuing to work with the RTAC coordinators to increase education collaboration. And then Injury Prevention Subcommittee did a Stop the Bleed Winter Blitz in January with 250 people in attendance. They also hosted a Matter of Balance training in January, and then they have several teen driver prevention and child injury prevention events planned for the spring. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you very much. Two things I want to highlight out of that list. Liz just gave me an update on the timing of the pediatric urgent transfer guideline. Thank you guys for putting that together. That was really, really awesome. And there were maybe just one little tweak that needed to be done, and that's getting ready to be printed. Is that right? Did I understand that correctly? And that should be going out pretty soon, so thank you for that work. The second thing is you mentioned the optimal course, now, so I'll jump right to that. So the commission's been kind enough to sponsor this for all of us at the Jekyll Island meeting, which I'm sad to report I won't be able to be at, unfortunately. So you guys have fun at the beach. But in lieu of an in-person TMD committee meeting the day before, the optimal course is going to be offered. So this is a survey that please pull it up, answer it, or maybe even just raise your hand if you're a medical director that would be interested in doing the optimal course. I'm definitely interested. I'm going to try to fly in and fly out and do it. But feel free to kind of take that survey and we'll see what it says.
That's great, thanks. And if you're not familiar, Optimal is a one-day course. It kind of walks you through all of the ACS gray book criteria and gives you sort of sage advice on how you meet those criteria. And it's a great dialogue back and forth about, what meets, what doesn't, little, pearls and things like that. So it's super helpful. I will say it's very germane for 1s, 2s, and 3s. However, if you're a level 4, there's no ACS verification process for 4. So unfortunately, it's great information, but it's not a level 4 course. There is work being done on a level 4 course, but of course we need the new level 4 standards before that happens. And we're really trying to gauge your interest in if you're coming, because since it's so far away, most people are going to have to stay overnight. We're going to have to extend the room block, and we don't want to be having to pay for rooms that you don't use. So we just want to have the best estimate of how much consumption and what the appetite is for this course before we go ahead and do that. So thanks in advance for doing this.
Yeah, I would definitely plug the course. I've been doing this for a couple of years, but still, loop closure and how it's done, how to make your team run, all of those things are incredibly important to making sure that we do the best we can do. So if you can, please try to make it to that course and submit your interest so, as Liz mentioned, we can logistically prepare. Okay, thanks Becky for the update. And I said 2 things, but I lied. I'm gonna say 3. The pediatric toolkit, transfer toolkit is really, really great work. So I appreciate you guys taking that on as well. We're level 1 adult center, but we rely on our peds expertise to help us take care of the little ones. So very, very important work. So thanks for that. So that takes care of the early transfer guideline update. It's almost ready for prime time, should be coming out very soon. I definitely want to, Gabby, if you want to pull up the slides, and I can just maybe help you move forward. I wanted to kind of kick off the RMOC conversation with this slide deck. I don't know has anybody pulled up it's called the pitch deck on the ACS site. If you go to ACS COT/RMOC, RMOCC, there's some information there that you can read through, but there are basically 2 slide decks that you can download. One is called the pitch deck, and that's what this is. There are 50 slides in the deck, and I wanted to just kind of run through a very, very high level, not all 50, don't worry. I hid most of them, but just to kind of give everybody a flavor about what's there. Because I think in talking with Dr. Christie and Dr. Benjamin and doing these webinars that take place every few weeks, where the COT thinks we are and where we actually are is there's a big gap. The ask is gargantuan in my opinion. It's important though. And so really what I wanted to make sure everybody understood is how to get at this information and to really pull it up, look through it, be familiar with it, and make an elevator speech out of it. So when you're in the hospital or in the hallway and run into your administrators or those that are helping make decisions in your system, you can emphasize it, because really where we are right now is the beginning of the conversation, and everybody has to be familiar with the concept before we can really tackle it. So let's just go ahead and flip through some of these, and I'll hit really the highlights. Okay, so basically it starts off by kind of identifying the need, and really the pitch point where this that gets everybody's attention as the large-scale mass combat, or large-scale combat operation, rather, and what we would have to do to scale up our trauma system to be able to handle that. Go ahead and go to the next slide there. So this is, what everybody's familiar with, islands of excellence in a sea of chaos. And so, we want to get away from this where you live determines if you live concept. And you see a lot of light blue there, which is not good. Next slide. Again, system-wise, we don't have a system that works together nationally. We have pockets of good state systems. We have really good regional systems, but they don't really communicate very well. And you can see a list of all the reasons why that might be so, all the challenges. Next slide. So the concept here is a construct for regional patient distribution to avoid or mitigate crisis conditions by equitably deploying healthcare resources across a state, territory, or region. And, there are two ways to look at that statement, right? There's the everyday operations, which are one of the big barriers to implementing an RMOC. What job do these coordinating centers have on a daily basis? And some of the fear from administrative standpoint, hospital systems administration may be related to, okay, why would I have someone outside of my organization informing pre-hospital personnel where to take a patient? So that's one of the challenges, and I don't know if that's really the answer in terms of what these coordinating centers should be doing on a daily basis. But the idea is to have them up and ready for when hundreds of casualties may present themselves, like COVID or large-scale combat operations that are flowing into the system. How do we manage and load level? So you have to have some muscle memory to be able to do that correctly. And quite honestly, the way we get there is that's the meat of the conversation. And I don't know if anybody knows the answer. But the RMOC concept is basically a grassroots effort to establish those units that would be responsible for load leveling in those situations. We have to figure out what they're going to do on a regular Tuesday in November when the world is peaceful and we don't have a pandemic, so that they can be ready to upscale when necessary. Next slide. So again, just some details and key functions. So if you're not familiar with what these coordinating centers might do, this is a great slide to become familiar with. Go ahead and go to the next one. And again, the idea here is to form RMOCs and across the nation so that when they need to, they'll be able to coordinate.
It could be related.
And form a network. Go ahead, next slide. So, all of this kind of has, there are a lot of organizations and a lot of initials that come to play when we talk about disaster preparedness across the country. National Trauma and Emergency Preparedness System, or NTEPS, is described here. There's ASPR regions across the nation that some of you are probably familiar with, where some of the current funding comes from, but may not be robust enough. There's the National Disaster Medicine, or NDMS system, that is, as we were talking over lunch with Dr. Dunn and Dr. Benjamin, is a concept and name only right now, but may very well serve as the basis for establishing these networks. Does anybody, just a show of hands, does anybody know if your hospital is, and I'll kind of dive into this a little bit deeper, but is your hospital an NDMS hospital? Does anybody know? So I don't see any yeses. How about a definite no? Or I have no idea. Right. I think that's where we all are, right? So the NDMS hospital is a hospital that's basically signed a contract that says, in the event my government tells me I need to see a patient, I'll see a patient. If they need me to accept a patient that comes from a foreign conflict, I'll take care of the patient. And there's some, some details of that agreement, but as I understand it, that's what that is. I think that's a piece of paper that lives somewhere that I don't have access to in my hospital, I can tell you. The NDMS system is kind of a top-down system where it's basically conceptualized as a spoke and hub model. But as we were talking about at lunch, there's only 3 spokes and there are no hubs. That's not right. I said that backwards. There are 3 hubs and no spokes. So you get the idea of we're in the infancy of this concept. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Just a little bit more about NTEPs. There's a QR code that'll help, so feel free to capture that if you'd like. And again, RMOC is the unit of action of the NTEP system. Go ahead and go to the next one. And again, some of these came out of the COVID pandemic, and some of them went away during the COVID pandemic. The few that exist around the country, as I mentioned, some were born out of the need for communication between systems and hospitals that we all experienced. And I think we all had aspects of this. I know in Georgia we did, but it was very anecdotal and very uncoordinated. So the idea here is to link those together so that next time that happens, we don't have to start from scratch. Go ahead and flip through. Again, you see the potential scenarios where these may come into play. It's the day-to-day that really is kind of the sticking point, and that's unfortunately kind of where we have to start, right? We can't create something that's just ready 10 years from now. We have to start with something that has a function day-to-day, and I think that's where we're stumbling a bit. Next slide. And again, yeah, we're all getting a little tired, including the electrons. So this is the idea, and just conceptually, the integration of RMOCs into a national system. And right now, just like we want to integrate our trauma centers into a national system, there are areas that just don't have RMOCs. And so that's kind of the gist of the conversation. Next slide. So again, why the push now? The LISCOs are the thing that gets everybody's attention. The world is getting tighter. We each have a little bit less space than we used to have, and we just don't get along very well. So the potential for a LISCO is definitely getting more and more by the years. And combat casualty estimates will overflow our system in a matter of days if that were to happen. So the idea is to get up and going so that we're ready if and when that does occur. Next slide. Just a little bit, and I think this is some of the information that Dr. Christie presented last meeting, and a lot of the slides may be very well the same. Just to step back, this slide deck was made available, a month or so ago, from a lot of the slides that the COT representatives have been talking about for a few months. So if you see slides you're familiar with, that's probably why. But again, multi-domain threat. Warfare now is different than warfare has been up until this point, and injury patterns are going to be different. Number of casualties are going to be different, and we need to be ready. Again, just a little bit more about what we're up against. One of the things, I don't know if any of you guys were at East a couple of weeks ago, they had a breakout session on this very issue. And one of the problems that we had to kind of anticipate is a lot of the military-civilian partnership places that are up and running now will be emptied out, and all the experts there are going to be deployed. So again, just another limit on our resources. So we kind of have to be ready, but we still have to maintain our civilian trauma needs. And the other thing is, we also have to make sure that our non-trauma patients are still getting the care that they need. all the while, because that's not going to stop if this were to occur. Again, these are just some of the questions we kind of have to be ready to answer. Where do these people go? Where is available? Where do we have capacity? Who's going to pay for it? How do, how do we assure quality in the face of higher quantity? All very important questions to answer. Right now, the NDMS, you see the pilot sites there. These are the hubs, and again, we just don't know where the spokes are. Next slide. A little bit more about NDMS, and just a reminder, we're talking about the system that's a pilot, the hub and spoke model, different than the NDMS contract that your hospital may or may not have signed 10 years ago. Next. A little bit more about the pilot project. A lot of acronyms that I don't necessarily understand or should, but basically it's a top-down project, and the RMOC concept is a bottom-up project, and our hopes are that they're going to meet somewhere in the middle at some point before we need them to meet, and that's our challenge. Again, here's just a conceptual map of what this would look like. The hubs, casualties come into the red hubs, and then they're distributed to the spokes. Just a little bit about how do we do it, and again, at the bottom, what we're talking about here is a network of RMOCs, which we only have a few. So, next. So the other slide deck that exists, and this gets into a little bit of that, is okay, now what? So we pitch the need, and we get people to buy into the need. Now what do we do? And that's where the rubber meets the road, and that's where the conversation has to be a lot more widespread than it has been. Basically, you just see the beginnings of a roadmap, very high level and conceptual. The other slide deck that's available on this website is somewhat of a toolkit to be able to accomplish each of these steps. Next slide. So again, the state COT has kind of been primarily charged with this. That Alicia and I were just talking right before. This is that group, whether we know it or not. One of the things that we need to do as a group together is make sure we coordinate with our COT chair and kind of form a critical mass of folks that will kind of get started with that. You see the website where these slide decks came from. It's also referenced as a mock toolkit, which has been revised, I guess is the best word, to the 3rd edition. That's primarily housed on the ASPR website. And then there's a regional COT RMOC website to access as well. So I encourage you guys to get on those, learn as much as you can, establish an elevator speech, be ready to give it, and just beat the drum. Next. I won't dwell on this too much. I mean, I think we've hit the high points that are represented here, and I think that's pretty close to the end. Please tell me it is. Like I said, there are 50 slides in the deck. I skipped about half of them, and the other half we just kind of just went over in a high level. But I would just say, please get on the website, learn as much as you can, and start beating the drum, because I think it's going to take a lot of different people to make it happen. So, comments, questions?
I think at times you don't even know what to ask because we're so early in the process. But one of there's a lot of good ideas about how to do this, but the big stumbling block is where they where are the beds going to come from? Because most hospitals are 90 to 110% at capacity right now. So they can't even handle the current system they have, let alone 1,000 patients a day for 3 months. So I guess that's the question I think we're going to have to answer first, as to, well, where are they going to go? And people talk, well, you just empty out the trauma center, send all those medical patients somewhere else, and then the trauma center can absorb, 500 to 600 patients. Well, that's great, but where are those medical patients going to go? Because there's no place to send them, right? So I think we're not talking about bed capacity. We're talking about surge capacity above and beyond daily operations. And I don't think people have really thought through that. We don't certainly have 1,000 beds or 100,000 beds available, even in the continental U.S. that I know of. So I think that's the first question we're going to have to answer as a state.
Yeah, and I think you hit on a very important point. And I think we all kind of feel this at the trauma center level to a certain degree, is that it's not just surge capacity. In other words, how much more above what you're comfortable with in terms of number can you take, but how much more acuity than over and above what you're comfortable with managing will you be able to be willing to manage, because you may be the only person to do it. So we got to think through that, and we got to, in that surge situation, we have to have a different mindset, and I think that's important. And when you live at the end of surgical rescue, like most of us at the trauma center level do, we feel that all the time. But when we're going to be overrun with that high acuity, who's going to take care of the medium acuity now? And that's part of the concept that you're very astute at bringing up, because that's going to be very important. Okay, great. Dr. Walker is online. I was very excited to learn that our administrative subcommittee of the Trauma Commission has had this conversation as well, because they're going to be highly involved in making this go. And so Dr. Walker, as chair of that committee, wanted to share a survey, kind of an informal survey, and I'll let her explain kind of how this came about, that came out of their last meeting. So Dr. Walker, thanks for joining us, and I appreciate your participation in this discussion.
Well, thank you for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. I hate that I couldn't be there in person, but I'm glad to join virtually. And as was stated, I am the chair of the Trauma Administrators Committee, and certainly want you all to understand that you've got a advocate and in terms of the administrators, and we are trying to be proactive and want to collaborate with the trauma medical directors and all the rest of the stakeholders that it's going to take to figure this out. Just in terms of a little bit of background, I have the privilege of working on a day-to-day basis very closely with Benji Christie and Dennis Ashley, and they approached me after Benji came back from Ukraine, and he said, hey, I want to share something with you. And so I was able to hear the presentation that he developed about readiness, and I said, oh, the trauma administrators need to hear this. So back in November, Benji came and presented to the trauma administrators, and that was really kind of our first collective exposure to the RMOC, concept. After that meeting, I realized that, it was sort of like okay, this is great, but now what? So I developed this very unofficial survey just to try to understand where we're starting at and what level of interest our administrators have in the RMOC process, so that as we progress in the work that is ahead of us, we've got a ready group of engaged stakeholders that want to do this work. So very briefly, just wanted to share the results of this survey with you all. It's just a handful of slides and questions that we did at our last meeting in February. So first question was, how familiar are people with the National Trauma Emergency Preparedness System revisions that include those RMOC frameworks. And of course, the majority of people were not familiar with it at all. Next slide. How important do you believe RMOCs are for Georgia's trauma system readiness? And the majority of people believe that it was either important or extremely important. And I think we all, coming out of COVID and with the current political climate, I think it's becoming more and more, we're realizing more and more that this is not something that's going to go away. So we really need to begin to prioritize this. Next slide. Here's the kind of the money slide. I wanted to get a gauge of how many people were interested in participating in a work group, and I kind of gave them two options, and I don't know that these are the best two options, but this is sort of where we landed, either in expanding military civilian training partnerships. I know there are several facilities that have current systems or maybe developing current systems, and then developing and implementing RMOC. So a handful of folks interested in expanding military civilian training partnership, but lots of people interested in some level of working on developing and implementing RMOCs. Next slide. What level of involvement? In a good way, we've got some people that want to be involved in regular meetings and planning, and then we've got others more as an advisory role, providing input as needed, and I think we'll need both of those. Some people only interested in information only, and that's okay because we need that too. We need the information to get, to get out there. So we've got some individuals at all levels of involvement. Next slide. We had some robust discussion around some barriers. So definitely wanted to share what the perceived barriers are, at least from the administrative perspective, with RMOC implementation. And then after this slide, there's the next couple of slides did allow them to have some free text options as well. But the majority of people are worried about sustainable funding. I mean, we're administrators, so I don't think that's any surprise. But how is this going to, where's the funds going to come from, particularly, getting it established is one thing, but long term, how are we going to make sure this is a sustainable initiative, followed closely by EMS resources for long distance transfers. And I'm glad Dr. Vassie mentioned, it's one thing to think about surge, it's another thing to think about just a regular day. But in either case, if we're going to be thinking about moving patients around, how are we going to do that? And again, where are those resources coming from? Limited engagement among competing hospital systems, certainly across the state, we work pretty well together, but at the end of the day, we are individual institutions with our own priorities. And so what does it look like with us working together? And then last but not least, data interoperability challenges. I think this is certainly something to be aware of, as we're not all, on unified EMRs, and not just EMRs, but the other supportive, applications that we use across hospitals, our workforce platforms and quality platforms like Premier or the other one I can't think of right now, but those things can provide challenges when it comes to just how we analyzing the data that we need to support things like funding and other resources. Next slide. And then this was the free text that I was telling you about. Any other barriers, kind of a hodgepodge: teamwork, communication, leadership from various levels of centers, existing capacity, which we, came up already in this meeting. So the administrators are already concerned about that as well. Next slide. Perception of bias of where patients are being sent. I think, again, in relation to transferring of patients or where they land. HIPAA impact. If patients are being, sent across the state, what is the HIPAA impact on that data sharing? I thought that one was a good call out. And then the national standards, integrating across the United States. We here in Georgia may have some different practices than elsewhere across the country. And so what does that look like as we think about integration? Next slide. I think there's one more maybe. Oh, this is about military-civilian partnerships. For the most part, no big concerns. It would be a great opportunity. Again, thinking about military skill sustainment related to access to high acuity centers. So, in the state of Georgia, we certainly have some, military hubs. We've got in my area, Warner Robins Air Force Base, but we've also got other military installments. And so that military skill sustainment is certainly really the underlying goal behind the military civilian partnerships, is ensuring that our military partners can keep their skill sets up when they're not in active, in active military engagement. So those partnerships are very important even in times of peace. And then concerns about military civilian partnerships, I thought this one was a good call out: partnerships being impacted by government shutdowns and or funding. So that is something that we are facing more and more. Historically, that's something that wasn't very common, but here recently that has been a big thing for us. So anytime you've got military, government involvement, if you've got a government shutdown, what happens to these programs? So that's the feedback from the administrators that I wanted to share. Look forward to working with the trauma medical directors and others across the state to see what it looks like for the state of Georgia.
Thanks, Dr. Walker. That really eye-opening and insightful as well. I mean, I think some of the things that were raised in that survey are thoughts we've all kind of had in terms of stumbling blocks we'll have to overcome. And I really, more than anything, appreciate that you guys are having this conversation and thinking in this direction. So that is really, really good. Any questions from the floor for or online for Dr. Walker? Dr. Ashley?
Matt, before we lose Dr. Walker, I would like to make a couple of comments. We're sort of doing this, I think, real time, on the fly. Things are coming together sort of quickly, so I think that's good. I'd like to congratulate you and Dr. Walker and Dr. Benji Christie and Dr. Liz Benjamin, who is really sort of the energy behind the scenes for this, and thank you all for bringing this so far forward. I think we're in a great position to be successful. And the reason I say that is we have several things now that we haven't had before and maybe other states don't have, such as a trauma medical directors committee, which we have here. We have support from everyone, every center. We have an administrators committee, which we hadn't had before when we attempted this. Dr. Walker has access to all these individuals in the C-suite, and you have to have that to be successful. And so the survey, I think, is very encouraging, and I think we're really in a good position to move the ball or get things going. With that being said, this is a monumental task, and we need to keep folks sort of focused. Dr. Dunn was talking about the 1,000 casualties, as you were. That's one way to look at an RMOC. What happens on that map you showed, where people come into the United States from soldiers from various parts of the world in a conflict, and then they're very quickly pulsed out. That's one function of an RMOC, but let's face it, that's very rare. We're not going to have those. I mean, hopefully never, but maybe once in a lifetime. So we need to not just think about preparing for that day. We need to think about every day in Georgia where there's someone in Georgia, in South Georgia, North Georgia, with a problem that the ER doc calls 5 different hospitals and waits and see who calls back first and figures it out on the fly. We have to fix that problem. If we fix that problem with appropriate access, then we fix the RMARC problem, because we're doing it every day. Does that make sense? So I don't want people to get focused. We've got to think about 1,000 casualties a day, and we've got to help the United States military, and we've got to do all those things. But first of all, we need to help the guys in South and North Georgia, East Georgia, West Georgia, that can't get their average trauma patient out the door because they don't have any place to send them, or they call 5 places. So I think that's a good place for us to start, to get our feet wet. And we've actually done this before. We, going way back and I think it's important to understand where we came from so we don't make the same mistakes. This can't come from the top down like we did before. The commission tried this about 12 years ago. We actually had an RMOC, and it was called the TCC, Trauma Communication Center. And it was manned 24/7. It was in Forsyth, Georgia. We had a little building. We had computer screens. Those screens were updated 3 times in 24 hours from all the trauma centers. We knew if you had CAT scan availability. We knew if your trauma surgeons were open. We knew if you were on diversion for ICU. We knew if you're green, yellow, or red. It was all there. That could have been, the screens were set up at that time to pulse up and could handle stroke and could handle STEMI or handle RMOC. It was ready to go. For a lot of political reasons I won't get into today, that it was really just before its time. You know, if that had happened today, probably exactly what we're talking about, it would have been successful. But it wasn't. Fast forward to the GCC, the acronym keeps changing. It'll be fun to see what we call this new system. We need a new alphabet. But anyway, the GCC, the Georgia Communications Center, which was started out of Grady when they had their water main burst, and that was a huge problem for Atlanta. It really was more of not of a statewide system, but more of an Atlanta system. That caught some traction and had the ability to see where resources were, who was on diversion, and place some patients. And then that has since gone by the wayside. With all that being said, so we have experience with this in Georgia, and I hate to use the thing third time as a charm, but I really think we have things in place now we haven't had before with our administrators committee, with our TMD committee, with the great presentation that you just made and others have made about what RMOCs are, with the national COT giving us some direction. I think we have ability to be successful. But I think our goal should be to set up a system that is not threatening, that is voluntary, that allows patients, our mantra should be the patient that's in rural Georgia, one call, to the communication center to place that patient within 10 minutes in the appropriate facility. And that can be done if we're all at the table and we work out the details so that no one feels uncomfortable. There is a system, there are systems that we can look at, civilian systems, such as in Alabama, in Arkansas. In Arkansas, if you call their communication center, they will place that patient at a trauma center within 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes, that's their average. Alabama's the same way. So I think it's very doable. I have a medical student. The reason I said this is moving fast, this just sort of happened within the last month that had an interest in this, and so I've had him researching Alabama and Arkansas, and we just about have our slides set ready to go for presentation to this group. Wasn't quite ready for today, but it's not 50 slides either, so it's much shorter. So I think you all will like it. But anyway, looking at cost, what's needed, the number of FTEs, just some down and dirty kind of things that we can chew on. But I think what we need to do, and what I would like to propose, Matt, as a motion from this group, if I could get a second, would be to start a small study group with 2 or 3 TMDs that have an interest in this, 2 or 3 or 4. Dr. Walker's group, it looks like they have interest now, and that was the first thing to do would be talk to the administrators group, get 2 or 3 or 3 or 4 of them that Dr. Walker can pull together. And with these 2 groups, 7 or 8 people, let me present what I found out to you all about nuts and bolts. What's the cost, number of FTEs, how's it look, that kind of thing. And let that group mull over that and then come back with a recommendation to our 2 groups, our 2 committees. And then once we get buy-in from all the administrators, from all the TMDs, everyone's had a chance to speak, then we can take that to the commission for a vote and a recommendation. Once it passes that, then we can take it to GHA, because if we don't have all hospitals, involved, maybe not participating, but certainly knowing what's going on, a chance to have a voice, a chance to be involved, a chance to volunteer. Again, it would be a volunteer system. We're not making anybody do anything. But I think people in rural Georgia said, if I had a number to call that you would take my patient, I would sign up for that. It doesn't cost me anything. And once we do that and GHA buys in and gets a chance to touch it, feel it, make suggestions, so they own it as well, get MAG, Medical Association of Georgia, involved, and then we can go to our legislature. I would say our timeline should be next year. This is perfect timing because we need to have this ready to go, have all our stakeholders involved, talk about it in the summer, and then key legislators know about it in the summer. And then when we bring it forth for some funding to support the center, exactly almost 1 year from now in January, the next session, I think we'll be successful. Because the costs are not inordinate. We just need to have everybody agree on what we're asking for. So that would be my motion to set up a study group, if you will, to come back to our Trauma Medical Directors Committee and our Administrators Committee with recommendations to chew on and to formalize.
No, I would agree 100%, and I appreciate that input. Dr. Benjamin and I actually had a very similar conversation about throwing that together ad hoc, but certainly having a timeline and an expectation and some deliverables laid out before we start that conversation is definitely helpful. And I think that's a great idea. So as I understand it, a motion would be to establish a work group that's cross-committee of our GTC committees that exist, and a small work group to study this. So I think that's the motion on the floor.
I'd second that, Matt.
Yeah, so Dr. Dunn, thank you for that. Any question or further discussion?
Hey, Matt, can
Yes.
I just say, oh,
Yeah, yes, go online.
hi, it's Liz.
Okay, we do have a question in the room.
I would just remind everyone to please not forget the burn centers, because those also are a critical part of how we manage patients around the state.
That sounds like a volunteer from a burn center that wants to be on this group. I like it.
That was a definite, I'm signing up, so
I
thank
think
you.
that's what I heard. No, all joking aside, I think this is a great idea. And so we've got a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion?
I would just say I'd also recommend Dr. Benjamin be on. I'm sort of going to volunteer her since she's involved with the national COT as far as the RMOC, and then Dr. Benji Christie, who's the state chair for the COT. So I think those two, that gives us the link from our state into the national COT. I think that would be wise.
Yeah, I would take Dr. Benjamin in my conversations earlier as her volunteering as well, whether she agrees or not.
I always agree to help.
Oh, she is online. You did make it.
I am.
Yeah.
You guys, can I just say one thing? Like, this is
Yes.
amazing. It's like really amazing what you guys are doing and putting together. The survey that Dr. Walker did completely mirrors, the sentiment nationally. And I would say, even with the discussions that you're having in this meeting and bringing the administrators in together, this is putting Georgia already ahead of the curve nationally. It's really wonderful to see in all of this, interest and engagement. So thank you so much for spearheading this. I know that you and Benji and obviously Dr. Ashley have really done so much to bring this to the forefront and get people aware about it and really start thinking about, nuts and bolts, how to put this together. And so I just really appreciate all the work you've done. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for those comments, Dr. Benjamin. And I plan on talking with Benji a little bit over the weekend as well. So I feel like he'll be on the same page as well. So I would say if there's no objections to putting this together and establishing some deliverables and a timeline in the short term, if there's no objections to that, I would say that would carry. I don't feel like there will be anybody that would not agree with that. Speak now or forever hold your peace. and silence means volunteering. So we'll take that as well. All right. Well, thanks for that recommendation. That's really kind of what I wanted these conversations to spearhead at some level, and so that's thank you very much for that. One of the other things I wanted to put on the agenda, and this was a great segue from Dr. Ashley's comments about we don't have to reinvent the wheel, is how have other places established a coordinating center, and what does it look like? And so I've asked Becky Gaskins to share Grady's experience in participating with the Alabama trauma system and how that works and what it looks like operationally, and so thanks, Becky, for being here, and look forward to hearing your guys' experience.
Perfect. All right. Yes, so Grady is a designated level 1 trauma center within the Alabama state trauma system. So I'm just going to tell you guys a bit about how that cross collaboration works and exactly what Dr. Ashley was saying, how we get our patients and how they determine from the scene or from another hospital where the patients are going to go. Next slide. So Grady supports EMS Region 2, which is that yellow section there. And as you can see, all of those green dots are level 3 hospitals. We are the yellow dot on the right side. So you can see Grady's proximity to those counties compared to the other yellow dot on the left side, which is where Birmingham would be. So those patients within those counties are really in a largely terrible location to get to a level 1 trauma center quickly. So we support that area. We work directly with EMS Region 2. Their leadership within that region is who we collaborate with, who we get our feedback from, who we provide outcomes to, et cetera. As I said, we function as part of their trauma system, and annually we get about 50 trauma patients transferred to us, and approximately 20 or so patients come from scene, and that's a mix of air and ground. Grady also does participate as a stroke center for them, but I'm not covering that in this presentation, but it is a very similar format. So the way this works is they have a centralized destination decision through the Alabama Trauma Communication Center. So kind of first step there is obviously 911 is called, or a patient arrives at a referring hospital from a private vehicle. The EMS or referring hospital recognizes that the patient requires a higher level of care, and so then they contact the Alabama Trauma Communication Center. The Alabama Trauma Communication Center directly looks at real-time data through a computer system like Dr. Ashley was mentioning, and I'll show you a picture of that in a few slides. But they're able to see at any given moment what the capabilities are of the trauma centers that are in that area. And then at that time, the decision is made to transfer, and the transfer is initiated from the communication center. So it's a single point of contact. Like I said, it's real-time hospital monitoring, and it prevents, as we've talked about, as we know from reviewing cases, it prevents the hospital from having to call to find an accepting physician on their own. And it ensures, again, that the patients are getting to the closest, most appropriate resource. I know this is really small, I'm so sorry. This is directly from our partners in Alabama, and this is just kind of their algorithm. And it goes from, again, 911 being notified if the patient is on scene, or if they arrive at the referring hospital. It looks a little bit differently, but EMS goes to the scene, they assess the patient, they then call back to the communication center, and they do kind of a second triage through that phone call, and they determine at that point where is the best location to send this patient. Do they need to utilize air resources? Can they get them to a ground facility to stabilize, et cetera? Then the patient is taken to whatever destination that they determine, and then the patient goes into their QA/QI process from that point. You go to the next slide. And this, again, I'm so sorry that it's tiny. Hopefully we send these slides out. But this is if it is a referring hospital transfer. So if a patient arrives by a private occupancy vehicle, or if they are taken as kind of a scoop and run from EMS, they start there at that referring hospital. They are entered into the ATCC at that point from that hospital, since they did not get entered prior to arrival. Same process from determining the best next location for the patient. If that patient was a scoop and run straight to that hospital, that then is sent through their QA/QI process, because obviously that is not the direction that their EMS has been given. So they're supposed to obviously start that at the scene. So they always give that feedback. If they're POV, of course, that doesn't happen. ahead. And so how do they know who has what capabilities? So it's real-time trauma system status. We, as a designated trauma hospital within this system, are required to maintain this communication via computer link. So it sits in our emergency department, and at any given time, they can see our capabilities. So if we go on diversion, we have to notify them through this computer system. If for some reason we have personnel issues, if we have a loss of any critical resources, if we have facility limitations, we have to notify them through this system so they know what Grady is not able to do at that time. And again, our availability to receive trauma patients is determined at any given moment based on this communication back and forth. And I know these are terrible photos, I'm so sorry. The top is just a graph of basically what this looks like. So you can see there on the left, A, B, C, D, E, and F. Those are the different hospitals. And then you see the colors represent what they are able to do. So if you're green across the board, you are able to absorb and take anything and everything at that moment. Whatever you have marked as red is the gap that you have at that time. So if it's a surgeon specialty that's unavailable, if it is a OR resource, whatever is unavailable turns red, and then they know that you are not the best facility for whatever type of patient would need those capabilities. And I just highlighted there that you can see we have 2 green bars after our name, our organization's name, because we are, again, trauma and stroke, so that represents both of our capabilities. So what do they do with all of this data that they get? First and foremost, we have to give them outcomes data. That's kind of our requirement beyond the communication link, is we give them outcomes data to let them know, what happened with the patient. If we identified any triage OFI, so if they sent us a patient that got discharged from our emergency department, they want to know that. Same thing if it was a transfer and they got discharged from the emergency department, they want to know that. If we identify that the patient probably did not need to come via air for any reason, they especially want to know that because they really focus on their resource utilization as a system. We also participate in their quarterly meetings that they have as a region, and then provide any case review and EMS education that's requested. And then how do we maintain our verification? Obviously, we have to make sure that we keep all of the level 1 capability and readiness that they say that we have to have as a verified level 1 trauma center, and they do come annually to review us on site. So why does this work? Because obviously, as we've talked about, it is getting your patients to the quickest, most appropriate resource, regardless of state boundaries, regional boundaries, hospital system boundaries. It's just utilizing the resources that exist to make sure your patients get cared for. It allows us to have a centralized command routing as opposed to the providers having to make the phone calls or EMS agencies having to be the ones to figure out where to take a patient. It allows someone who's not actually caring for the patient at that moment to make those decisions. The continuous communication ensures that they know what hospital has what capability, so no system is getting overwhelmed. Allows us to have shared PI and EMS feedback, which improves their triage and resource usage. And then, of course, ongoing regional oversight helps to maintain accountability in the process. Any questions? I may not know all the answers, but Sarah's here. She probably knows a lot of them.
Sorry. That's really, really awesome information, and I do have a couple of questions. Operationally, on the ground level in your ED where this computer exists, I'm just envisioning a workstation.
Mm-hmm.
How many people have to have access to that, and what are their responsibilities? In other words, what's the FTE requirement, to Dr. Ashley's point, from your standpoint, to keep that information up to date?
So there is really no additional FTE requirement. The same group, which is our PCC office, that would send out a spoke alert for an activation. If we ever go on diversion or if we are down, the same group who would be sending out that notification to the system would turn around and put it into the computer system. So it's literally, it sits in their office, minus the fact that they don't like the computer being there because of space reasons. Otherwise, there's no additional burden besides they just have to click a button.
I envision it stays green until something comes up and somebody turns it red.
Yeah.
So the default is open for business.
Right. I mean, and Grady, we don't go on trauma diversion. Knock on wood, we haven't gone on trauma diversion since AMC closed, so it stays green intentionally, right? So
thank you for that. That's
yes.
that's our mantra at Northeast Georgia as well.
Yes.
It stretches us appropriately.
Yes.
But yeah, thanks for that. I guess those are my two questions from an operational standpoint. I mean, the things that hit me about that presentation, that some of the barriers that Dr. Walker mentioned in the survey from the administrator's mindset, it really shouldn't really be a problem in terms of nobody's deciding taking patients away from your system and put them in another system. It's your transfer, your normal transfer route will still be your normal transfer route as long as it's all green.
Right, right.
And I don't see this shifting or having the ability to, or certainly not the purpose to shift patients from one place to another.
Right.
Unless the resources demand it.
Exactly.
Is that
I
fair?
agree, yes. And I will say from at least our interactions, which is again with EMS Region 2, the ownership that they have, it's remarkable. Like, they are not the ones who are, impacted by which hospital a patient goes to directly. They're not owners of a hospital, but they are so passionate and have so much ownership of this process working well. They want to know feedback from us. They want to know feedback from the other hospitals. Their involvement, of course, with EMS education is amazing. I think the other piece of this that makes it work really well is all of their EMS agencies have centralized protocols. So, they're not having to pick and choose based on ALS crews or BLS crews. They have ownership of that part as well, which I think assists with the process.
That's incredibly important and underappreciated
Yes.
from a trauma center level, for sure. Any other questions?
Just one, do you know how long the Alabama Coordinating Center has been up and running?
Well, I was just looking at this. Actually, I think it said they started in 1996, I believe.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay, all right, yeah, 'cause I was wondering how they got buy-in from EMS. Because like Matt was saying, if you have a level one in your region,
Yeah.
and your patient's injured in that region, you're gonna go to that level one. You don't need to call the coordinating center. But if that only level one is on diversion and you have no level two, and you're 3 hours from the next level one, then, what happens then, I guess, is the question.
I will say that again, our interactions are with Region 2, but they are great resources and would be happy to talk more about how they've made this work. I know that Mr. Blue has been involved since the inception of the coordinating center, so yes, and he is very happy to tell everyone the history. Yeah.
So I think that there's basically two levels of buy-in we have to get, right? One is the facilities in terms of updating the information. And it seems like this is built into your workflows, very seamless, not terribly hard.
Right.
Doesn't require a new position to be created.
not.
It's on cruise control for the most part, unless something bad happens. And that's
Correct.
what we want to prepare for. I guess the second level we kind of have to think about is, okay, so at the coordinating center level. And so I think that's where Dr. Ashley's information that you're putting together is going to be helpful. And do you know where this place is, where it's housed geographically?
The command center, it's in Birmingham. I don't know where exactly, but in Birmingham.
Some bunker
Probably.
somewhere. It's where the radiologists live too.
Right.
And to find out from a coordinating center administration level would be the next level of what I think that small group that we're going to put together will certainly need to be charged with as well.
Yeah.
And we've established, sounds like Grady already has as well, but we've established contacts and interviewed, my medical student has, from one of the staffers from Arkansas as well as from Alabama.
Awesome.
We know their FTEs, we know how much it costs.
You been there?
I've been there, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been to Alabama, I haven't been to Arkansas. And it's not anything fancy, it works though.
Well, I mean,
It works.
if you've been part of the webinars that are happening with the COT, it really does. The concept seems daunting, but where it's been operationalized is not complex. I mean, what it can accomplish maybe, but it starts pretty simple. I mean, I think I forget which system that they were highlighting, but it was started with a cell phone and a person from their home. So I mean, it's definitely doable.
I had the opportunity to work with the Arkansas system, my 10 months in Memphis, and I can tell you it really worked very well as well. And there was a very robust PI process in Arkansas that I would encourage us to look at, where we could look at PI from a regional standpoint and see what we were doing well, where our opportunities were from a transport perspective. We followed the patient from pre-hospital all the way through discharge we used an armband, which I know we've done an armband trial here. But it really was a very robust system and worked well in Arkansas.
I think that's key, Matt, is what we're finding out is that these folks have a data analyst or a PI person embedded into their FTEs so that they do analysis and they can tell you who they saw and where they came from. And so that's part of the cost, but that really serves well to keep everybody happy with the transparency. So that's part of it.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Becky. That's really, really awesome information.
Dr. Bassey, I did have one point. I was going to compliment the fact that the stroke was added into that, and I'd encourage this group to consider broadening it some to whatever, for the challenges that hospitals have and getting transfers. I don't want to make it too big that it can't be started, but I would be open to that, whatever the transferring hospitals' challenges are, as ICU beds or stroke, STEMIs. I'd just consider that as y'all start on it.
One of the questions I had in looking through the slides that you just presented, Becky, too, that just popped into my head, of all those green squares, are those mostly disease processes? Are they specialty availabilities? Are they bed capacity? Or is it kind of a mixture?
Let me read it to you exactly. I can zoom in here enough.
It's like orthopedics, neurosurgery. I mean, whatever you have to have, that's...
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially all the level 1 capabilities. So OR, neurosurgery, ortho, CT, imaging. I will get the exact list because the photo he sent me is really blurry, but I'll get it for you guys.
Great conversation. Any other questions or points to make? So more to come, and I appreciate the engagement and the input. It's very encouraging. Thank you very much. One of the things we'll skip over EGS verification. That was just a show of hands question that I'll answer if we have time, or I'll ask if we have time, and skip down to the TMD vice chair nominations. One of the things that the commission has asked us to think about and move towards is to have a little bit more robust leadership of all the committees and kind of make it a little bit more uniform. And given this little bit of thought, one of the things I'd want to put forward as an idea is have basically a three-pronged leadership of our committee moving forward in terms of a current chair, an immediate past chair, and a vice chair that's set to succeed the current chair. Similar to the setup that we have of the COT, but maybe not quite as long a terms. I think this committee has a lot of opportunity to work, and it's got a lot of really good resources to work from. But the coordination of those resources, just like we're talking about with RMOX, can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge and be a little bit work heavy. And so one of the things I would propose is that and we don't necessarily need to move forward with any nominations or votes at this point, but what I want to do is have each of you guys that are listening online and in the room from a TMD standpoint, let me know what your interest in serving in one of those roles may be. We can talk about term length and those kind of details as we go along. But if you have nominations for someone you feel like would do a good job, if you feel like you would do a good job and would volunteer for that, I think that should be the next step in making sure this committee becomes a functional committee that actually is able to accomplish some things. So questions, other input? All right, I can feel my email inbox filling as we speak. Yes, my phone's just going nuts up here. But yeah, so I just want to put that thought in everybody's mind. What I would like to hear from you guys are some nominations. Feel free to email me those. And what I'll do is put together a list, and hopefully at our next chance to get together, we'll maybe have some progress made with that. Any additional comments on that, Liz? Dr. Ashley?
I think that's what we're trying to get all of our committees uniform in a structure, to have some kind of succession planning, and then there's like some institutional memory so that all the great work that the foundation that you're setting can move on. I understand you're just creating your path for exit here, but you know.
I think
Selfishly.
Matt should just do it forever. I think, you know.
Well, so, so please feel free to give me that information, and we'll put something together. I did want to show a hands of, is anybody working on or has accomplished emergency general surgery verification with the college? That may be a little bit off topic for the trauma committee discussion, but just kind of interested in knowing if anybody's working on that out there.
I think it's aligned because in a lot of programs, we're seeing a trend where the trauma program manager becomes the manager or director over trauma and acute care surgery and is responsible for both program verifications.
So are you using this clip or a homemade database or?
As to what is the best way for us to collect that data and to track it, but I'm also trying to help justify another registrar position and have it be half EGS and actually half burn.
Yeah.
So.
Excellent. Dr. Aying Chi?
So Joe Sharma, who's our, I guess, Georgia Collaborative NISQIP champion, for lack of a, he's the medical director for Georgia NISQIP Collaborative and does a lot of work with the college on the national level with quality and safety in that conference. I think he'd be a great person to talk to about the synergies. And I know the American College, thankfully, now has a CMIO, and they're working with Epic. I think they just actually have they just signed an agreement that they're going to try to make it easier for the registries, both NISQIP, TQIP, all the registries, to be able to synergize with Epic and have less manual data collection for some of the things that are reliably inputted into Epic.
Yeah, I'll just share a couple of things that I learned at East during the breakout session for EGS verification. One, the college is very supportive, and so they have some resources they can share. So if you're interested in learning more about it, reach out to the college and they can get you in touch with they call it an accountability buddy. Am I saying that right? That's a new term. I learned that term. Somebody that can that has gone through the process and can help maybe navigate some of the unique institutional concerns. And NISQIP also has an EGS module associated with it. I don't know exactly how that works or the logistics with it, but we're just getting back into NISQIP in our system. And my NISQIP director, who was voluntold to be the NISQIP director, had no idea about that. And so we're really, really on in the infancy of that concept. But I just wanted to share that with the group. one, to kind of selfishly get to see what other leadership I can tap into to learn some things. But two, to kind of relay that if you're thinking about that as an institution.
Thank you for getting all my stuff. That was so nice.
I have some resources too. Actually, the college came out to the NISQIP collaborative meeting last year at this time here to talk about the EGS program, and they left some resources, so I can email those to you, Dr. Bassett. You can share
that'd be awesome. Thank you.
With the group to specifically talk about that and the alignment with that. So I can share those resources that the college sent me.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Regarding that.
All right. Any other discussions that you guys want to have? We're set to give you back 15 minutes of your life, which is also always good. All right. Don't forget to sign in.
Hi,
Give yourself
sorry.
credit for the work you're putting in.
Dr.
So the QR
Abbasi?
code's on the screen. Yes. Somebody
Sorry.
online?
Yes, hi.
Yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah, it's Aviva Bashan from Kennestone. Sorry, I'm just hearing the echo in the room and it's really obnoxious. I emailed you some papers, Dr. Vassi. The ED group and a group of doctors that sort of govern pre-hospital care would like to release a position statement on doing away with backboarding patients. They still obviously will maintain spinal precautions on their gurneys. But I forwarded some papers in support of that and wanted to gauge what the group's appetite was for potentially agreeing to that and throwing our weight behind it or not.
Yeah, a very important question. You guys tell me if I'm interpreting the joint COT EMS physicians statement about backboards. I know we had a robust and maybe even appropriately contentious discussion about C-collars for the same reason at our last RTAC meeting, but my understanding of the position statement was that essentially backboards are extrication devices and not transport devices, and did I overinterpret what was meant with that statement?
I mean, I think my understanding is at least the groups near us would like to do away with backboards altogether, although maybe potentially use them for extrication and then immediately move them over just to the stretcher, not to maintain them on backboards.
Yeah, I would, as far as our pre-hospital services, there's certainly not a consensus, but I think many of our services practice that way already, but I would certainly be in favor of that. Any other questions or?
Keep working out with Mickey and Garber, you're going to have to go extra large to get the guns in there, man. Yeah. I mean, put that.
I don't think that was about this.
I get that impression as well.
I mean, maybe it's hard to fit the guns on the backboard. I don't know. But yeah, I wanted to see if folks were comfortable coming out with a position statement to sort of standardize care across the state. And again, it's not a decision that necessarily obviously needs to be done right now when you were trying to get 15 minutes back, but I do think it's an important conversation.
No, I agree completely, and I would. Let me send out the information that you sent to me, and I would just ask you guys to take a look at it and see if, certainly the concept I'm definitely in support of. So let's look through the information, and once you guys have a chance to do that, just let me know what your thoughts are. We can come up with a position statement from the committee.
Amazing.
Yeah, thanks for that, Aviva. I appreciate that. All right, anything else? All right, well, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All right. I don't see any objections. So thank you guys for coming and appreciate your input. And again, just let me know about nominations for leadership and what you think about the information that Dr. Bashan is going to send out.